What's going on, guys? This is Gene Jensen, and it is time. It's that time for Friday Night Live. All right. Let's get this thing rocking and rolling. Who's already a bunch of people on? It's pretty nice. Sean, what's going on, man? Yeah, the new 13 stuff is pretty cool. I did some videos while I was down there. They're going to be like the next 3 Tackle Tuesdays because I'm going on vacation. So the lighting sucked on them. Though. I hope I can get the in post be able to do some editing and get the lighting a little bit better. But we shot with a really good camera, so I should be able to. But anyway, welcome everybody. I'm excited to be here. It's the day before 4th of July for us. We're gonna have a nice barbecue here, have a few family members over, kind of relax. I spent all the day today out mowing my lawn and working in the garden, and I got a heck of a sunburn. I got more of a sunburn here today than I do when I'm fishing. But welcome for those of you who are joining me with my podcast. Welcome. My podcast airs after this. I download it, and it's on a bunch of different little podcast sites, except for iTunes is the only one I think I'm not on. But yeah, welcome, guys. Goodness gracious. Cody Payne, what's going on, man? It's Atlanta Clutch. What's up, brother? Go Dogs. Fish on DFW. What's going on, man? Fishing hook and irons. Where did happy come from? I got no. Oh, it's the happy 4th fluke daddy. I'm such a dummy. Dinks need love too. That's a sweet name. Hey man, what's going on? Goodness gracious. Tanner, how you doing, brother? It says, what's up? I heard you coming to Utah. I am. Vacation starts. We're gonna head on out there, visit some friends that I haven't seen in a while. Try to get up there early enough, or on Friday night of the week I'm going, so Saturday morning I can fish the tournament on Hiram Reservoir. I've never fished for bass in Utah. It's always been trout, so this ought to be interesting. I know nothing about Hiram, and I'm just going to show up and go fishing, so it should be a lot of fun. I don't know who's loaning me a bona fide SS-107, but I appreciate it. So I'm going to bring all the gear to rig it up, but I definitely don't want to haul a kayak across country just for a one-day fishing trip. So, oh, man. Justin, appreciate it, man. Brian, what's up, man? Big Red Bass. How you doing, brother? Happy 4th. Man, oh, man. What else is going on? Oh, the giveaway. So I'm going to go ahead and say this now, and then I'm going to say it a couple of times during the video, during the live. But we're doing a giveaway. Basically, you go on my website, flukemaster.com. I'll put that down in the bottom here real quick. Pick up a Flukemaster sticker. They're only like $5. When you get it home, stick it on something fishing related, boat, kayak, tackle box, I don't care. Take a picture of it. Then on Instagram, what you're going to do is you're going to go on Instagram, post it, tag me, and then use the hashtag #StuckOnFluke. That's all you got to do. Or is it stuck on or stuck with fluke? I think it's stuck on fluke. I got a new phone, so I got to figure out how it all works. But let's see. Yep, stuck on fluke. Make sure I tell you guys the right thing. But yeah, pretty simple, pretty easy. And then what happens is at the end of July, I will pick one winner, one random winner, to win a $50 gift certificate to my website. But the bonus is at the end of April, May, or June, I haven't decided yet, but in next spring, I'm going to, from those winners, I'm going to pick one person, and I'm going to come to your house and pick you up, and we're going to go fishing. So that's going to be pretty cool. So out of what, 9 winners, maybe 8, 9, or 10 winners, but whenever I decide to pick, that'll be pretty neat. So awesome. Sean, man, thanks for the $10. It says, happy 4th, Gene. Oh, let me get down here so I can pop his comment up here. Happy 4th, Gene. Have safe travels and a nice holiday. Do you recommend the 107 or 127? We are limited with storage, but want to fish Lake Michigan. For lakes, the 127. The 107 is fine for lake fishing. It's easy to paddle. It turns really well. It was designed more for current and moving water. It's got a little bit more rocker in the side. I think it's a half an inch or 3/4 of an inch wider. And literally when you're sitting in it fishing, you don't realize you're in it and not in the 127. When I go back and forth between the two, the cockpit is exactly the same size. The only difference is it's a foot shorter in the back and a foot shorter in the front. So you decide, but the 127 is what I recommend for lakes and that kind of stuff. You're going to do a lot of paddling, you can go either or. But the 107s, being that it's smaller, gets moving a little bit faster than the 127. So, but anyway, thanks for the $10, man. You guys that donate, you're awesome. I really appreciate it. It really does help. Helps a little gas money here and there when I go traveling. Mike Tag Roggenson, one of the few people that I ever guided. What is up, man? Golly, Mike. Oh, man, I hope you're still shooting long distance, brother. I really do. Hope everything's well with you. Happy 4th of July. But trying to think of what else is going on. Not much. This crazy coronavirus thing is kicking up again. But the positive side of it is most of the people that are getting it right now are young, and the survival rate is real high. There's not a lot of people dying, so we're kind of getting what's called herd immunity, which is not a bad thing. Luckily, our hospitals know how to take care of it now and know how to deal with it and kind of know what to expect depending on whatever health issues you've got. So I just had a friend survive it. He came off the vent 2 days ago, I believe. He's back to breathing on his own, should go home shortly. So, but he was, diabetic and had other health issues and things like that. So, but anyway, you guys stay safe, keep your hands clean, don't touch your face, don't suck on your thumb, that kind of stuff. But let's get things rolling. I'm ready to do some Q&A. Fishing hook and irons. Well, thanks for the $5, man. Let me find your comment and I'll throw it up there. It says, hey, Fluke, when are you going to start making your own baits and lures? Here's a $5 investment for the first bag. I'm not sure. I as much as I'd like to do it, I know that if I start to do it, that'll be all I focus on, and this will slowly go away. And so I really like to focus on making instructional videos. I'm doing just fine. I don't have to make $1 million. I am paying the bills and keeping my wife happy, and that's it, and that's, feeding the kids, and that's all I need. So I'm not looking to make $1 million, and not trying to just not trying to make baits. I love to make jigs for myself and that kind of stuff. I'd rather work with a company that's already doing it than I would for myself, at least at this point in time. So, all right, let's see. Tactical yakking. What? I knew somebody was going to ask this question today, and why it happened so early. It says, hey, brother, what do you think of the new Apex TYR? Pretty wild price tag on it. Okay, so guys, what a TYR, an Apex TYR is Eric Jackson's new venture for a fishing kayak that is 100% carbon fiber. Retail price is around right at $10,000. Yep, $10,000. You guys can pick yourself up off the floor. Their GoFundMe price is $8,000, I believe. So I don't like what I see so far. It looks like a whitewater engineer and a whitewater kayaker got together and tried to design another fishing kayak. And that's my opinion. It's 100% my opinion, but it looks like a whitewater kayak. It probably paddles really well. It probably is super light. $10,000 without anything on it. And, oh, you get a necklace and a bracelet or a watch or something. Anyway, that's enough. Why is my phone going nuts? See, I got this new phone, iPhone 11. I still don't know how to use it. So I'm going to shut it up real quick. Okay, never mind. Those are fishing questions from guys who just realized I'm live. Anyways, enough of that kayak. Nathan Provost says, why do people fish spinning and baitcasters with the handle on the opposite side? Example, right-handed baitcasters, you switch hands after you cast, but you wouldn't with a right-handed spinning reel. So I can tell you about me. I learned how to fish a spinning reel reeling with my left hand and holding the rod in my right hand. I learned how to cast a bait caster holding the reel in my left hand and reeling with my right hand. Switching between the two, having my hand up above the rod or below the rod, I still can't do it. I have more control over a fish with the bait caster in my left hand when I'm fighting the fish, and the opposite with a spinning reel. And that's the only thing I have. That's the only way I can explain it. It's how I learned. Am I glad I learned that way? Heck yeah, because there's more right-handed reels out there than there are left-handed reels or bait casters. And most spinning reels, you can switch the handles to either side. So the only reason why I'd recommend to learn it the way I'm doing it is because you have more options with right-handed bait casters. So I don't know why I've got heartburn. I didn't eat very much tonight, but I am dehydrated. All right, Brad, when you fish bottom baits, Texas rig jigs, so on and so forth, is your drag locked down or not? I don't lock my drag down. A lot of people do. I will, if I'm fishing 65-pound braid and punching into matted vegetation, I lock it down. And I'm going to tell you the reason I don't with a Texas rig and a jig. When you do with a Texas, and I'm going to just talk about a jig, and it's the same with a Texas rig. But when you do with a jig and you lock it down, when you set that hook in the fish, if you hook it anywhere but the top of the mouth, but the top of the inside of the mouth, you're going to rip a hole in that bass wider, a lot wider than that hook. And that barb can work its way out just like that. I think that's why a lot of people lose bass with a jig, is that you rip a hole in it and the bass comes up and shakes its head and that jig just pops right out of the hole. I like to set mine like I do any other bait, 1/3 to 1/2 the weight. And I do it just by feel. I don't have a scale or anything else anymore, but I'm like, yeah, 15-pound test. This feels like about 6 or 7 pound pull. And then I go with that. And I don't rip as many holes, but I have a powerful hook set. So it really does. I can still get the hook penetrated and stuff like that. Same thing with a Texas rig. So I lock down with punching because I've got to turn that bass's head and get it out of the vegetation as fast as I possibly can. So, and if it's a big bass, it takes a little bit more oomph to get that head to turn. Dinks need love too, brother. Thanks for the $15 dono from YouTube, man. That's awesome. It says, hey, Fluke, just got an extra heavy, moderate fast action rod, and I need a reel. What do you recommend around 200? And what are your thoughts on DC reels? Thanks again. I've never used the DC reels. I know some guys have had them and not liked them, and some guys have had them and love them. So I'm not going to be any help because I fished with a guy this spring, and he bought 3 of them and thinking that he would love them, and he just didn't like them. And so, but a lot of people do. It's pretty nice to not have to backlash and stuff like that. But what he said is that he says he feels like he's losing distance on his cast because of it, because his thumb was already educated enough to keep it from backlashing, every time. So, but what reel? It depends on what you're throwing on. A moderate fast extra heavy. That's kind of a swim bait rod, that kind of stuff. If you're throwing big swim baits, you're going to use a 300 series reel. So the Concept A3, the Z3, that kind of stuff is a 300 series reel. The new 13 reels are out on the market, and dude, I love that A. The C is beautiful. It's super, super light. That A is an absolute tank. It's a little heavier than the previous A, but it's got everything that's added to it is to make it to where it lasts long and there's not a lot of water intrusion. But you'll see that in the video when I launch it. So awesome, man. Thanks for the $15. I really appreciate it. Let me go back up and see if I don't want to miss everybody's comment. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Levi, happy 4th. Any tips on fishing from a kayak without a fish finder, depth finder? Just for me, what I do is I just fish what I can see if I don't have a fish finder or depth finder. Offshore angling, totally out of the question for me. I cannot fish offshore without a fish finder. I have to see where I'm sitting, and what I'm casting to, and that kind of stuff. I just feel like I'm wasting my time if I don't. So throw to shallow cover, throw to grass edges, throw to what you can see, and you'll be just fine. So, oh goodness, fish fox this week at Charlie Elliott, couldn't catch a cold. I heard they lowered fox and they cut the trees, and I haven't been there in years. But it used to be, what Fox Lake was is literally there was a small lake. They made a dam at a place where it can make a lot bigger lake. And then they dammed it up and didn't bother cutting the trees, and they were everywhere. I got stuck on top of them so many times in my John boat, but I caught a ton of fish there. And the best thing to do is to follow the creek channel this time of the year. I remember middle of the summer, they'd get down to 15 feet deep, 12 to 15 feet deep, because that's where that cool water was. So, Hog Jaws Outdoors. Happy 4th, Gene. Question: I fish a lot of creeks and small rivers, and some have infrequent boat traffic. How does this affect fish when they pass through? Usually if there's a lot of bait fish in the area and a boat goes through, what it does is it will stir the bait fish up, and you can catch fish behind the boat. I started doing this in saltwater. I was getting schooled by somebody else is what I was getting, but a boat would come by and my buddy would throw behind the boat and catch a fish. And I'm like, what in the world? So I started doing it. Well, then I started trying it with bass fishing. I was on Pickwick one time, and I could not catch a fish until a boat went by. And the boat would go almost right over where I was fishing, and I'd throw over to that ledge and I'd catch a fish. Gunnersville, same thing. I had a moron crank up his bass boat, and I was fishing a kayak tournament, and I had been anchored down the same spot for like 3 hours. And he knew where I was casting to, and he ran right over my school of fish. And I threw the bait like I was throwing it at his boat, because he was going about 40 or 50. And it landed right behind his boat and sunk down to the bottom, and I got bit immediately, and I caught probably one of the bigger fish of the tournament. So I don't think it matters much. It's all in your head. So let's see. Why 65-pound braid on heavy fast action bait caster? For me, it's just about because I'm fishing heavy cover, like heavy grass, thick grass. And when a bass bites and you don't always feel the bite, and he starts to head out of that grass or into that grass, you got a lot of line you've got to pick up, because that line's going into the water and under the grass, and you've got to set the hook on that fish. And braided line will cut through that grass, and fluorocarbon won't. And so you'll get less grass wrapped around it, and you'll be able to get a stronger hook set. Also, you can feel everything. And number 3 is you can get an instant hook set and instantly turn that fish's head, and you can make him come out of that grass a whole lot easier. So, yeah, it has nothing to do with the weight of the fish. It has everything to do with the amount of crap you got to go through to get the hook set. So, Alan Sizemore, awesome job. Love all the info. Do you have to throw a frog on braid? You live in Knoxville, Tennessee. I prefer to throw a frog on braid, because it does take so much force to get that hook set in the fish, and you're typically fishing around heavy cover. You can do it with monofilament, but you're not going to get near the amount of power behind that hook set because of the stretch in that mono. So just, you can, but I always recommend the best stuff that you can use. So, Tactical Yakin says, hey, brother, what do you think of this new? Oh, you already asked that question. I must be way behind in comments. Oh, my gosh, low mace. Any tips for 113 degrees? Air conditioning, and just make sure it works, and stay home. Seriously, make some lures, do something else. That's too hot. I can't do that. I was out in 90-something degree weather down in Tampa this week, and it was miserable. Of course, I don't like the beach anyway. My wife knows it, but I take her every year. She loves the beach. She has to go every year, and I go with her. So, Gerald Waters says, I'll be fishing up in the great state of Ohio the next couple of weeks. It will be a old stone quarry, crystal clear water. What do I throw? Then it's on to Lake Erie for walleye, perch, and smallmouth. I just throw like a drop shot. You don't have to lighten up your line much. If you're gonna fish for smallmouth, I'm assuming you've got a drop shot or some type of a spinning rod set up with some fluorocarbon. And a quarry's a lot of vertical drops, so they're going to be hanging at a certain depth along those rocks or wherever there's some type of cover or a drop or something, maybe a little ledge. But that drop shot will help you find those ledges and just, I don't know if you're going to be in a kayak or fishing from the bank, but stay close to wherever the hard bottom is. So. How do I feel about the Abu Garcia virtual rod? That's the one with the angler button. I think it's a pretty good idea. I love my angler button. I keep leaving mine in the truck. I usually wear them during my podcast, but I love to use it because I can go back and track where I fished and see the decisions I made and adjust and try not to make bad decisions again later. It just helps me evaluate my fishing. So. Tyler Sexton, thanks for the $10, man. He says, hey, Gene, what braid would you recommend? Power Pro, Seaguar, Berkeley. I'm sponsored by Seaguar, so let's go ahead and get that out in front of everything. But I've tried Power Pro. I've tried Berkeley. I've tried just about everything. But Seaguar Smackdown is what I use. It's smooth, yet it doesn't dig into itself all the time like a lot of smooth braids do. And it is so durable. I love it. And that's what I use on everything. So Smackdown is great. Let's see. I'm sorry. I got sidetracked. I was reading the rest of Tyler's comment. He says something about Power Pro for the quality has been downgraded. It over the years, I've had issues with Power Pro. But sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. When I usually have the issues is when I buy a bolt spool of it. Somewhere along that spool, there's going to be a weak spot that breaks. And so when I'm spooling it up, what I'll do is I'll make sure I hold a lot of tension on that spool while I'm spooling it up. I get something to hold tension to it. That way, if it breaks, it's going to break while I'm spooling it up, and it doesn't break when I'm putting it on or break with a client, because I was guiding. The place I used to guide bought Power Pro all the time. So James Demel, it says, hey, happy 4th of July. Happy 4th, Gene. Going to a new lake. It is a flood control lake. Fishing in the morning and using kayaks. What would you use? I don't know what state you're in. I don't know what the water temperature is, but summertime fishing, dude, I'm fishing a Texas rig worm. And a drop shot, something I can throw and fish really slow. If they're deep and they're on if it's a rocky lake and that kind of stuff, then you can throw like a crankbait and something like that and beat it off, beat the crankbait off the rocks. It all depends. There's just so many different variables depending on what the lake is. But look for the bait. If you don't see any bait in the area or you see very little, keep moving until you find good concentrations of bait or life in general. So. Okay, JD Fishing TV says, hi, I used your advice from last week and it worked great for my ponds. Thank you so much. That's awesome, man. Even a blind rat can find the cheese every once in a while. How about I did pick up some of that color change fluoro from Berkeley. It's actually not that bad. It turns a bright yellow in the sun, kind of crazy, but 20 pound with a jig, I feel the bite and the hook set. Oh man, yeah, I'd have to check that out. I haven't seen it. I know that Berkeley made a color changing line years ago, and it wasn't fluorocarbon. I don't believe it was trash, but that was years and years. And I mean, talking 10 years ago, and it changed colors in the light and sun and that kind of stuff. But it was so bad I used it as backing, and I bought a giant spool of it too, thinking it was going to be great. So, but yeah, I don't think that's the same stuff. Hey, Gene, happy 4th of July tomorrow, and God bless from Toronto, Canada. Thanks, Northern Pike. I appreciate it, man. I really do. Any chance you come to Pickwick Lake this summer? Probably not this summer, but maybe this fall. I need to get to Wilson. I've got a outstanding date with Timmy Horton. Him and I are going to go compare notes and stuff, and work on some things with fish finders. So, let's see. Tips for when the water gets low. Again, it just depends on the lake, but typically when the water is falling, the bass are going to pull out, and they're going to pull off to the deeper water off of that. Because you got to think of it, if the water's falling, bass don't want to be caught shallow and not be able to get out and die. So it's their survival instinct. So as the water starts to fall, they can feel it. They can feel it fall 1/4 of an inch. They know that water's falling, and they will pull out to the next cover or the next drop and that kind of stuff, and just keep working their way out and staying away from the shallow water. Low water will concentrate the bait fish into the middle of the pockets, depending on how low it is. But you're still going to find the bait, and you'll find the fish. So, Whiskey Gordon says he finally caught a fish on a swim jig this week. Don't know why it took me so long. I feel your pain, dude. What was it, last year or maybe the year before, where I finally decided, dude, I'm going to fish a swim jig. Too many people fish it. Too many people have confidence in it. And I just never bothered fishing one. And finally did the same thing. Finally just fished it and fished it and fished it until I caught one and realized it ain't that bad. It ain't that hard. So I really like it. So Todd A. Bain, he says, how did your head-to-head tournament go the other day? So what happened was I had an angler had a live tournament, one-on-one tournament between me and Dave Lefebvre, Major League Fishing Pro. Dave and I are friends, so we had a lot of fun. It was actually really, really good. We had good conversation. It was hard for me to concentrate as much as I needed to on that Texas rig, slow drag Texas rig technique. So, but it was a fun conversation. I ended up winning by like 1.25 pounds or 1.5 pounds. He caught 3 fish and I caught 2. He was fishing a local lake close to him in Pennsylvania. And I was fishing the only spot on this whole stinking lake that had fish on it. And so I pretty much anchored down and stayed there the whole day. I did leave and go check one spot, but I ended up coming right back. But I caught both of my fish early. It was a 4-pounder and 2 and some change, I think. So, but yeah, it was fun, man. He's a good sport. He's like, afterwards, he's like, I can't believe I got beat by a YouTuber. He says, I'm going to have to hang it up. Oh, goodness. Christopher says, happy 4th, Fluke. Any suggestions for midday 90 to 100 degree heat fishing? We find some in the morning, but afternoon drops off. Yeah, they go deep or they go find current. Same, and I cover this in several summer videos on my channel, but bass need oxygen to live. I mean, like everything else, they need oxygen. And when the water temperature gets into the 80s, it starts to lose its ability to hold dissolved oxygen. So they can go deeper to where that cooler water is, which is what we call a thermocline, because the water starts to have layers, or we call it starts to stratify. And they go a little bit, they go deeper, and they follow that cooler water, which is usually about 72 degrees, and they follow it on down, and they stay at that depth. The bait fish do that too. Or they go find current, which current stirs the water up, either wind or water coming into the lake, you know, like a creek or a river or something like that. And they will hang out there. So if you're working along the bank and you come to like a culvert with water coming out of it, there's going to be a fish there, I promise. Or if you come to a little creek coming in, and that pocket's going to have fish in it. The other one is grass. You know, submerged vegetation through photosynthesis creates oxygen, and that dissolved oxygen, the bass hang in there, the bait hang in there. And like you hear me say 100 times, and a lot of other people, the bass are in the grass, and they always are. So those are your options, dude. You got to find oxygen. Let's see. My son's birthday is next week, and the Rona made it real tough to find a rod and reel for his birthday gift. Was able to find a Fenwick 6.6 Eagle and a Shimano reel. That's a good rod. Fenwick makes some pretty dang good rods. I think I've had an Eagle once, or I used one, and borrowed one from somebody once, but it was a long time ago. but that ought to be pretty good. 6/6 is a shorter rod than what most of the ones I use, but you'll find that he'll be a lot more accurate with it than he would with a 7-foot or 7.5 foot. So, what's your, oops, sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. What's your opinion on getting a bona fide RS-117 as a first kayak? That's a good one, dude. It really is. My son has one and he loves it. I've been in it once. It paddles really quick. And it's a fun little boat. So, yeah, dude, that's a good first boat, and it's light. So you'll like it. All right, let me get caught up. I know we got 10,000 new comments, but I'm just kind of going slow. JT Coffee, nope. Oh, he's talking about terminal tackle being sold out everywhere. Go to an Academy Sports. Everyone I've been to is empty with fishing tackle. There's no soft plastics. There's no terminal tackle. There's no nothing. So, yeah, everybody's having those issues. Tackle Warehouse, I haven't looked on them lately. I'm still waiting on Tackle Warehouse to put 13 Fishing's new stuff on their website so I can launch these videos and get you guys heading that direction. Carl Rotman, any advice for fishing Ned rigs or shaky heads on lakes with super soft, mucky bottoms? Have a safe 4th of July. One of my favorite techniques on like ponds, like small little farm ponds that have soft bottoms, is to take a shaky head, throw it out, let it land on the bottom, and then just lift your rod up to about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, so kind of high, and just start reeling really slow. And what you're doing is you're picking that bait up off the bottom and you're reeling it just above that bottom. And I'm shaking it and I'm reeling it and I'm shaking it a little bit. And I'm just reeling it really, really slow. And I love to catch fish that way. You'd be amazed how many fish you can catch in a small pond, especially one that has soft bottom doing that. So, I wouldn't throw a shaky head though, unless it's a really, really light one. I'd throw a drop shot before I threw a shaky head with a short little leader where the sinker goes down in the silt and the bait stays up above. So Justin Camish says, little discouraging, question never gets answered. I don't read very fast. I just can't. I'm dyslexic, so I fight with it all the time. But if I see your question and get a chance to read it, I will read it. I'm not picking and choosing. I'm just doing whatever pops in front of me, whatever catches my eye. Let's see. A lot of people answering people's questions because I was answering too many. Let's see. JD Fishing says, I am 12, but I'm saving up for a John boat. Do you think it is a good idea, or should I be looking more towards kayaks? That's up to you, really. Depends on the type of water you fish. I saved for my first John boat too. It was, I can't remember how much I paid for it. But I was 27 when I bought my first John boat. So let's see. Nick Barrett, thanks for the $5 Canadian. He says, is it okay to troll with the wind current? I get frustrated trolling into the wind. You can. I've never had an issue with it. I usually will troll back and forth, but I know a lot of people insist on it because they think that all the fish are pointed, into the current. And a lot of them are, but some of them, if they're in an eddy, they're going to be pointing the opposite direction. And you may not even see the eddy. So, Gene, any suggestions for a 7-11 deep cranking rod? Have some smaller Legend extreme rods, but would like to try something in with some graphite to see what the difference is. Happy 4th. Let me think. The Fate Black cranking rods that are coming out, that are actually on the market or heading to the market right now, a lot of stores are getting them. I got to play around with that this last week. The 7-11 is a composite graphite rod, and it's pretty dang good for a deep diver. If it's the same blank as the one that they use, I think it's a little bit different though. I can't remember. I don't remember the type of graphite that they used, but Ricky about 4 years ago started to really focus on, and he's their rod designer, focus on cranking rods, and really got good at at developing cranking rods and being able to develop those blanks from the cheapest rods all the way to the most expensive. So Fate Black is a really good one. The new Fate Black is only going to be $80. So and it's awesome. I love it. I've been fishing with one for a while, but anyway, I can go on and on about that. Goodness. J-Dubs, thanks for the $5. Says, ask the question in Super Chat, and it will get answered for sure. Thanks again. My Fluke Master decal is on the way. Stuck on Fluke. That's awesome, man. Yeah, because I get a little alert up top to let me know somebody donated. So then I can click on their stuff. I have a 1999 tracker. I removed my old cigarette outlet on my bow. I replaced the fuse in the fuse box, but I am still not getting power. Anyone have a clue why? Oh, I don't know. I'd have to look at your wiring. That's something hard to figure that out for sure. Carl Maracha says, "Hey Gene, happy 4th. What pound fluoro line do I use on a crankbait rod? What pound fluoro line on a jig rod?" Most companies test the depths of their crankbaits. Most of them test it with 10-pound test, if I remember correctly. And then, but I like to fish 12-pound line on mine with crankbaits. Well, because a lot of times I want to beat it off of stuff and really abuse that bait and abuse the line. So 10-pound would be just fine. But oh, my buddy David Fields, thanks for the $25, man. He says, "What's up? Take your bride for ice cream. How many of new Apex did you order?" Not a dang one, and I probably won't stand in one either. Who knows? We talked about that earlier. I know you come on late. So good to see you, brother. All right, let's go back up. Grab some more questions. Have you fished the new 13 Fishing Shadow Spin? I have not, but I'm excited to get one. I really am. Goodness, they didn't have any samples or anything at the offices when I went the other day. So, but yeah, they'll send me them when they get them. Going next weekend to fish a kayak tournament on a lake I've never seen except on Google Maps. What should I look for and where to start? Look for food. Look for life. I do it, and I say it 100,000 times. Every lake that I go to, whether I have been there or whether I haven't, I'm looking for bait fish. I'm looking for birds on the bank. I'm looking for any kind of life that's concentrated in an area, and that's where I start fishing. So that if you keep it that simple, you will be able to catch bass on your first time on any lake that you ever go to. So what gear ratio reel do you think is best for swim jig? I like a 7-3-1. I think 8-1-1 or 8-3-1 is too fast. So in the 7s or even in the 6s. I don't like to do a 6 because a lot of times a bass will come up behind it and grab it and keep coming straight at you, and you've really got to catch up. But a 7-3-1, you can catch up. So Eladio, how do you pronounce your name? Eladio Leal says, "Hey Gene, how does moon phase affect bite times?" I'm not sure of the scientific things behind it, but it does have to do with gravitational pull and all that other junk. It's a real thing, especially in the summertime, I've noticed, but it is a real thing most of the time. Just what I've started doing, and Chad Hoover's the one that got me to the point where I believe in that crap, because I didn't. I just wanted to fish because I love to fish, and I don't care what time of the day it is. But I started watching the Salooner times on what's the app I use? On Bass Forecast, and that's about the most accurate ones I could find. But I would watch them, and you would see the birds come out of the trees and land on the bank right as the feeding time was starting, and they'd start feeding along the bank, and you'd see the bait fish get a little bit more active, and it was like a switch, dude. And I was like, okay, so I always make sure that I'm at my best spots, or at the spots where I already know there's fish at when those feeding times start. I don't do it every day, but when I remember, I pull up my phone. If I've got cell signal, I'll look them up and I'll fish my best spots during the feeding times. And I usually catch fish. That's what happened with the Lefebvre, the tournament I fished against Lefebvre the other day. Is we got started late, and I had like 15 minutes left in the feeding time, and I knew I was going to get a bite during that feeding time, and I did. I caught 2 fish early, and that was it. They had stopped biting. They were still there, but they just stopped biting. So, fishing Fort Gordon. Any tips? Thank you for your service. Get a map. There's 22 lakes on Fort Gordon. So if you can pick up one of those USGS or those Fort Gordon topo maps, that'd be perfect. There's some lakes on the south end of Fort Gordon. I call them Three Sisters. It's 3 little lakes. Those were my favorite ones to fish. One of them was super clear, and you could do a lot of really cool sight fishing. That's where I started to get serious about bait fishing, was on those lakes. So it's been a long time, though. All right. Gene, wonder if you have any suggestions on a first kayak, also trying to figure out how to attach it to a smaller car. Thanks, Gene. They have those little, I used to throw a 12.5 foot or 13-foot kayak on top of a Toyota Corolla. And you get those little rubber bumpers or those little hard foam bumpers that you put underneath the kayak, and then you strap your straps across it. And I did them like through the doors and strap it down. And then you want to have a strap coming from the front of your car up to the nose of the kayak, just to keep it from sliding off the back. So that's usually what you do. The first kayak, they'll always suggest before you buy a kayak to go try one out. Try out as many kayaks as you can, and then stay within a budget. You can buy the cheapest kayak you want. You'll keep it for about a year or 2, maybe 3, depending on how serious you are. Then you'll upgrade it. Buy a good paddle, and you'll be set. It just all depends on what you can afford, really. You know, when I first started fishing, I couldn't afford a piece of styrofoam. So I understand it. Now, if I was to go buy my first kayak, I'd probably spend $1,000 on it. But oh, John Larson, thanks for the $5. I'm covering up your picture, aren't I? Where is it? It's right there. John Larson painted that picture. That crazy picture of me holding the bass upside down. Thanks, man, brother. Thanks for the $5. Hillbilly fishing. Is it a good idea to use a chatterbait in the summer? Yeah, why not? There's other stuff that I like to use other than a chatterbait, but there's been a couple of days this last month where I wish I had it with me because the wind was blowing good and spinnerbait wasn't working. I said, man, I bet a chatterbait would work. Nope, I didn't have them with me. So, Stephen Guthrie. Oh my gosh, he says, if I bought a new Apex, he's talking about that $10,000 carbon fiber kayak. If I bought a new Apex, it would also come with divorce papers. Oh, man. Going off of Andy's question, is there an app you'd recommend for mapping to research new lakes? Most of them you got to pay for. But the ones I use Navionics. And I use Fish Smart, which is this one right here. Navionics wasn't working well. Fish Smart. I got a new phone, so I got to freaking enter my password and everything. But those are the two I use. Fish Smart is really good, but you got to pay for each map. But it's super detailed. And then Navionics is one you got to pay for the app, but you can look at everything. So those are the two I use. You can get on a computer or you can get on the internet and you can look up Navionics web app, and it's free. And you can go see topo maps of any lake you want to go check out. So, can we watch iCast this year? There will not be a live iCast this year. It's virtual, and I don't know how they're doing it. All I know is that that's the reason I went down to Tampa, was to film some videos for 13 so they could post them up on the virtual iCast so the buyers can go see what's new and the buyers can decide what they want to buy for their stores and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if it's going to be anything public, but they canceled it because of coronavirus, so nobody's going down to Orlando this year. So Jacob Rustin, how do you differentiate between when you throw a creature bait such as a craw or a worm on a Texas rig? Gosh, I hate to say that it just depends on how I feel that day or what kind of cover I'm fishing. This time of the year, I always go for a worm first. Always. It's just, I have a ton of confidence in a worm in the summertime. And a crawbait, I tend to go to it when I start seeing crawfish. Really, I remember it, but that's mostly up north. When I was up in Minnesota fishing, there's a ton of crawfish that come out in the summertime. In the south, when I've got to punch some type of a creature bait, I tend to go to one that looks like a crawfish, and I'm punching through grass or into thick brush or that kind of stuff. Because it's got a lot of kicking going on. So, let's see. Can transducer wire be repaired? I noticed my brand new transducer was nicked today. Can see internal wire. Is it junk now? No, you can fix the wire. Matter of fact, I've got one on my boat that the Ultrex I used to have on it would cut the wire, literally cut it in half. And I did it to two of them. One of them was a brand new transducer, and I was able to, splice all. And I'm good with electronics and that kind of stuff. They're tiny wires, but I was able to splice them together. The hard thing is to get them waterproof, and I use heat shrink stuff, and I use liquid electrical tape is what I use. After I get them connected, I'll paint them to get them good and waterproof, but they got to be connected good, and then I'll heat shrink over top of them to make them even more so. So yes, you can fix it. It's a pain in the booty, but you can fix it. So I was all over fish today and couldn't get them to bite. Frustrating. Dude, I've been there. I'll tell you a story of when I've been there. Man, my hat is always crooked. My head must be crooked. Anyway, so I was out with my fishing partner, Bobby, on Clarks Hill Lake. We were up on the north end with where the bridge is. There were thousands of bass schooling all around us. We stayed there for 5 hours trying to figure out how to get them to bite and couldn't get them. I even used a little drop shot worm or minnow about this big that had an eye. It was clear. It looked just like the dang bait that they were biting or they were feeding on. And I would throw it out on super light line and reel it back in weightless, and they wouldn't touch it. And finally, we just packed it up and went home. In the summertime, there are days like that. So do you really believe that you need to stick with a certain rod and reel for this particular bait, or just throw a bait on a rod and reel and go fishing? I believe you can throw a bait on a rod and go fishing. The reason I teach the right rod with the right baits is because if I don't, then I will be answering that question 100 times in the comments. And so there are a lot of people out there to do. My recommendation is always have a base number of rods. 3 for bank fishing, 5 for boat fishing. The 3 for bank fishing is a spinning rod that's a medium or a medium light, a bait caster that's a medium, and a bait caster that's a medium heavy. For a boat or a kayak, those 3 rods plus a heavy, plus a cranking rod, some type of a medium heavy moderate or medium moderate. Those are the ones I recommend for boat fishing. So that will cover any bait you want to throw. But like I said, I make videos to be informative and be right. And, I want to be as right as I possibly can. And I have to include the best rod combination and the best reel and that kind of stuff for the bait in order to cover all of my bases. So, but yeah, you can go grab a rod and go fishing. You'll, depending on the weight of the lure and stuff like that, you may have a hard time casting with too stiff of a rod or too light of a rod and that kind of stuff. But the bass don't know. I've caught a bass on a number 2 pencil. They don't care. So, oh goodness, I just saw something I wanted to read. Let's see. Caleb Queen, what's the best kind of crankbaits this time of the year? I usually go, it depends on the depth of the fish, really. But I'm about to break out my box of deep diving crankbaits and go cranking, 12 to 25 feet deep, because the bass are about to get down there. So Typically, the bass move deep in when the water gets super hot. Up north, they don't move as deep because the water doesn't get so stinking hot. But so you don't have to throw as deep of a crankbait, but it just all depends on the depth of the fish. Stefan, what's going on? My brother says, have you seen the new KVD lineup on Lew's? I have not. I have not. I knew it was coming, though. KVD signed with Lew's. I knew they were going to use that as much as they possibly could. Trying to get more confidence in faster baits, crankbaits, etc. Any tips? Yes, don't reel them at one speed. Change speeds during your retrieve. Change directions. Pop your rod. Do all kinds of crazy stuff until you figure out what the bass want. But don't just throw it out and reel it in fast unless you're waking it. That's the one thing that I always. Well, no, I even pop it when I'm waking it. When I say wake it, if you're throwing a spinner bait, it's just under the surface enough to make a little V in the water to come across, and the bass will crush it. But I'll reel it like 6, 7, 8 times and then pop it once. And just keep doing it, trying to get that skirt to flare out. So let's see. A lake I fish on often. Rain a few days before I fished, and I could not find any bass up shallow. I don't think I got a bite from a bass. I tried a drop shot, but all I could catch was trout. Any tips? If it was they may have already settled if you got there a few days after the rain. If it was the day before, you may be able to find water running into the lake that's in a different spot than what it normally is, and they'd be there. I don't know what your water temperature was, but if there was trout, it was probably pretty chilly. They're going to be in cover. They're going to be shallow in cover. But probably, judging by your picture of you holding 2 smallmouth and the fact that you were catching trout, you're going to want to fish some grass edges, either the deep edge or the shallow edge of the grass, and you'll find fish there. So let's see. Sweeney Todd caught a sauger on Pickwick? Really? I didn't even know they had those there on a rooster tail of all things. That's pretty cool. Another 5 fish limit says, I need a hat with a better logo on it. This one ain't going nowhere, even though they probably won't play football this year. This one's staying on my head. Go Dogs. Philip Watkins. Hey, Fluke from Maine. I fished less than 7 feet of water from the bank. Crud, I just lost your comment. There it is. From the bank, lots of grass and thick lily pads. What would you recommend for fishing pads that's not topwater? Happy 4th of July. If I'm not fishing on top of the pads, there's one of my favorite baits is actually a floating worm. And it doesn't really float. It sinks a little bit, but I fish it fast around the lily pads. I haven't done that in years, but man, I used to kill them in lily pads with a floating worm. Bright color, pink, methylate, white sometimes works, yellow, that kind of thing. And if it's sunny, get something like a green pumpkin with red glitter or something with glitter. Green pumpkin magic's my favorite color with it when it gets sunny. But dude, a floating worm is great. Another one is realize that if you want to fish under the lily pads, you're going to have to fish vertical. So you're going to drop it in a hole, shake it a few times, bring it up, shake it a few times, and then take it out of the water and drop it in another hole. So it's my favorite lures to throw in a fall. Square bill crankbaits, spinner baits, swim jigs, just any kind of moving bait. And then what kind of worms do I normally throw? Soft plastics. I just throw swim baits mostly, paddle tail swim baits, but all moving baits because the bass around here start to key in on bait fish, and so they're really feeding good. Is there one knot that would work for tying on lures and baits with all line types? No. Well, a Palomar, really, because a Palomar is what I use for braid. You can use Palomar with a fluorocarbon if you tie it carefully. Don't cinch it down without wetting it, and make sure you work that knot down real careful, or you'll burn that fluorocarbon. But yeah, a Palomar knot would work for all 3: mono, braid, and fluorocarbon. Would you ever fish Clark Hill again? I want to so bad. I just don't get down there during my favorite times of the year. I wouldn't fish it right now. It gets really tough in the summertime. Maybe I would, but biggest thing is that I'd probably fish it in May and June when they're up on top water. I just always am so busy during that time of the year. I don't get a chance to get back to Augusta. So, do you guys know how to catch bass when gar are moving into the water area? Yeah, I don't let the gar bother me. I've caught bass around gar. Bass don't care, you know. So the biggest thing is just don't let them bother you in the head, and just keep fishing for bass the way you're going to fish them. So, Bass Bank Rob is in here. What is up, brother? Man, I haven't heard from you in a long time. Of course, I probably haven't paid attention. So I was just down your neck of the woods this past week with my wife. We were on vacation. I didn't even take a fishing rod. So went down to 13 fishing and shot some videos, though. Good to see you, man. When there are lily pad, yeah, Sweeney Todd says when there are lily pads, topwater frog, for sure. Tips on fishing a creek dam. I'd have to look at it, dude. I'm not very good at that kind of stuff. I just look for the deeper water in the area. So that's ideal. J-Dubs, you know, earlier we were talking about rods for baits and that kind of stuff. This is a perfect example of that. Why you need 2 or 3 different rods. He says, I spent a day last week missing hook sets fishing with a light rod. I switched to a heavier rod and the problem went away. Plain and simple. You can catch a lot of fish on just one rod, but you can catch more fish and get more fish that bite to the bank or to the boat or to you by fishing the right rod. So Joni, what's going on, man? He says, what's up, Gene? My wife asked me why I need a 15-inch screen fish finder on my boat. I told her Fluke Master said so. Dude, I can totally see that. Oh, man, your wife she is amazing, but gosh almighty, she's the boss. I know that. I know who wears the pants in your family. So, but that's funny, man. I love it. I wouldn't tell you to buy a 15-incher, though. Goodness gracious. Is your hat crooked or my eyes? My brain's crooked. My head is crooked. Literally, I was talking to my son the other day and I said, look, Jordan, this feels straight on my head. This, let me see if I can get it right. This does not, but that's straight. I just got a crooked head. It's crazy. He laughed at me for like an hour. What would you throw a 6.6 medium heavy with 12-pound fluoro? Throw on a 6.6 medium heavy. Spinnerbait, Texas rig, a light Texas rig, something like a 1/4 or 3/8 ounce Texas rig or lighter. 6.6 medium heavy is like one that I would throw. I call it a dock rod because I want to be able to hit things accurately. And the shorter the rod for me, the more accurate I am. Years ago, I did a video called the Trick Shot Challenge where I did some trick shots with the, I had my son throw a box in the air and I hit it with a jig and I broke an egg in my son's hand and that kind of stuff. I was using a 6.8. The shorter the rod, the more accurate you are. So, let's see. Good question. He says, Isaac Enos says, do you keep your skirt on your buzzbait or do you add a trailer to it? 99% of the time, I take the skirt off and I put a trailer on it like a horny toad, a Zoom horny toad, white or black, depending on what color buzzbait I'm throwing. A paddle tail. One of my favorites is just a Fat Albert grub, just a grub with a little curl tail, that kind of stuff. I rarely ever fish one with a trailer. And if you ever see me doing it in a video, it's because I'm testing the buzzbait, and I haven't, and I just haven't taken the skirt off and stuff. So hold on just a second, guys. My dog wants in. He's whining at the door. Give me a second. Come on. Somebody must be shooting off fireworks. That dog is scared of a bubble and of somebody open up a Coke can. So, goodness gracious, sorry about that. Let's see. Krista Fields. It's the better half of David Fields. Goodness gracious, what are you doing on here anyway? Thanks for the $2, girl. I read your little story, your little rant about your local boat shop down there, and I can't remember what the name was called, but I went to that place once, and they were some idiots. So I walked out and I never went back. What name of rods do you use now? I've been with 13 Fishing for going on 5 years, and so yeah, I have all 13 Fishing rods and reels. But yeah, dude, they're a great company, and the videos you guys are gonna watch. The next 3 Tackle Tuesdays are going to be interviews I did with their guys at their shop, like the reel designer, the rod designer, and the bait designer. And so you're going to want to watch that. We get into some kind of inside info and stuff, and it's pretty cool. So, all right, we're going to, before I answer a couple of more questions, don't forget about the giveaway. Go on flukemaster.com, get a Flukemaster sticker sent to you. Then stick it on something and something fishing related. I'm saying fishing related, but I'm not going to care. But make an Instagram post, use hashtag #StuckOnFluke, and tag me in the post. And that way, at the end of the month, I can make a drawing for a $50 gift certificate to flukemaster.com. And that winner goes into a hat next spring. And of the 9 or 10 winners, one of you guys are going to go fishing with me, and I'm going to come to your house. And we're going to go fishing. So it's going to be a blast. It's just going to be me. It's not going to be a big, huge production. We're just going to go fishing, and I'm going to spend the whole day just hanging out and, teaching you everything you want to know. It'd be pretty cool. So do that. Deadbeat Outdoors, thanks for the $5. It says, Fluke, the Tennessee lakes are crazy. Advice for pressure fishing. Also opinions on anchors and carts. I got a new Old Town Sportsman pedal. Excited, happy for. Thanks, man. My dog don't know what he wants to do. Packer, come lay down. But pressured lakes, especially along the Tennessee River, I typically go offshore or go fish some offshore grass if there's grass in your lake. Offshore, it doesn't have to be deep. It's just going to be away from the bank. A lot of people can't get out there and do that. And I've got a bunch of videos about how to fish in the grass, and I want you to go watch every one of them. If your Tennessee lake has grass in it, that's what you're going to do. I got some summertime videos that cover offshore stuff too as well. As for anchors, I use a kettlebell. I use a 10-pound kettlebell or an 8-pound kettlebell. The 10-pound is too heavy, but I use it because I fish in the wind a lot, and it's usually pretty heavy wind. And then a cart, it all depends on your kayak. I don't know which one works good with an Old Town Sportsman. You'll have to ask somebody on Facebook. Go to KBF's, the Kayak Bass Fishing page, and they'll be able to help you out with that. So, Krista, she says, I have a pond we can fish in, and I don't know anything about fishing, so you will have to teach me a lot. You do too. I don't want to hear that. So says the Boat Center. So, Krista, if I remember correctly, you manage a bunch of professional anglers, so I don't want to hear that crap. You know how to fish. Let's see. Mean Dean says, Gene, do you do any lake consultations, as in helping someone look at a lake map where possible hot spots are, etc.? I've done that in the past. Yeah, dude, I don't have a problem doing that at all. Nowadays it'd probably take me a little bit longer to get things rocking and rolling, but or to get to your comments, just because things are so crazy. So, Krista, you're a nut. Thanks for the $5, girl. I appreciate you and your husband. Last question. That's a good one. Justin Hale. Hey, Gene, have you been back to the secret pond that you caught your PB at? No, I have not. They gave me GPS coordinates to get there, and it was so confusing. I finally got back into this little hole where this pond was. I've tried to look for it on a map, and I still can't find it. So love you too, Krista. Oh goodness, Justin, thanks for the comment though. Well, guys, I'm gonna jump off of here. I'm gonna go up and hang out with my family. But I really appreciate you guys coming on here. Like I say, I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody's question. It sucks. It's hard for me to read, but I do the best I can without getting my brain all backwards and inside and out. So I really appreciate you. Remember to get a sticker and start, get ready to win a fishing trip with me. But like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out on the water. Go out and catch some fish and have a great day. We'll see you.